for July 4th. Okay, we have been conquered by a new Confederacy. And let me walk you through that. The new Confederacy is a lot like the old Confederacy, and that's why I made this logo. Now, you don't really know this, but the Confederacy was a potential alliance with the British Empire. Now, I made this flag thing from a book called The Anglo-American Establishment by Carol Quigley, who was Bill Clinton's mentor at Georgetown. I think Bill Clinton's a CIA agent, so that's sort of like a limited, sort of a fake kind of a thing that I'm going to go against the Anglo establishment. Remember, Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. He has perfect memory recall, something that they can train people to do. He went to Russia after he graduated from Georgetown. Nobody knows why. Just the height of the Cold War, just on his own accord by himself, flew to Russia. Nobody knows why. Anyways, back to this. So usually this is represented with the American flag upside down, as is published in the book. I think the book was published maybe in the early 80s, 70s, or something like that. So I added the Confederate flag. Now, let me remind you that the real thing we should probably, by the way, the document wasn't signed on July 4th. That's an Illuminati thing. It was signed, I think, on July 1, and they changed it to follow the Bavarian Illuminati shit, all that stuff. Nobody cares about that anymore. It's all over the internet. But the more important thing that really created America as you and I have grown up in it is two battles that were fought right around July 4th, and that was Gettysburg and Vicksburg. Okay, so this thing here is back. And it's not just in the shallow way, like, yeah, you don't like MAGA people and you think that they're all rednecks. No, it's much, much worse than that. It's much, much worse than that. In fact, what you'll see is some redneck people like MTG are actually very much against this. And, of course, Thomas Massey. So this is not culture wars. This is like we're talking about whether or not our federal system of government exists. And just in a cheap way, I'll just say the president of the United States is flying around in somebody else's airplane. All right. So the original plan for the Confederacy was put together by someone named Judah Benjamin. Not Jefferson Davis, not Robert E. Lee. Judah Benjamin. Judah Benjamin was very closely connected to the Rothschilds. He went on to become a great scholar of law, and I think lived in England. And I think somewhat famously, one of the Rothschilds said he's the smartest man in North America. And his plan was to break up the United States, the Confederacy, triggered by the election of Abraham Lincoln. And there were 100,000 British troops in Canada and 100,000 French troops in Mexico. The day after Appomattox, Grant was going to invade Mexico. This isn't like edgy internet misinformation. This is taken from the book written by Ron Chernow called, wait for it, Grant. Okay? As you've heard from me many times, leaving Appomattox, General Lee said, I knew we could never win the war without bringing in foreign troops. I want you to think about that real fucking hard today. General Lee and the Confederates were going to bring in British and French troops to shoot American soldiers. So if you think I'm over my skis that this could never happen, they tried it once before. It didn't go so well. Well, this time it worked. So Congress just passed a law merging the United States, primarily our intelligence and our military, with Israel. This is an act of treason. It's not left wing, right wing. It's not even like a little touch of anti Semitism. It's treason. I think 90% of Congress voted for it, of course, because AIPAC has a 93% success in getting their people elected, which is treason. Rescuing the republic from enemies foreign and domestic, just like it says in every soldier that takes that oath and high office in federal government has to take that oath. Enemies foreign and domestic. Those enemies can be domestic. They can be U.S. citizens. They can be dual citizens. Conspiracies aren't all theories. Conspiracies are a real thing, right? The head coach of Indiana right now is running a conspiracy called the Indiana University football program. It's called strategy. Sometimes those strategies are to take over a country, and that has happened. Now, we know Donald Trump has compromised 6 ways to Sunday, from his finances, the casinos, the Rothschilds bailed him out. See how this all fits together? And it is the 4th. We're going to have some people at the pool. Hold on. As you build up to this, it becomes sort of overwhelming, and you sort of get this feeling of like, what the fuck are we going to do about it? One thing that may happen is Tucker Carlson's talking about creating a new, I think it's the American Party, and it'll be, I don't want to completely condemn it, but we may need something like what was called during World War I, the Alien and Sedition Act. Okay, this is never going to happen in Washington, D.C. This would have to happen on a state-by-state basis. Now, if you really want to make a good claim about the Founding Fathers, is they made this federal system, which is really a lot like the Holy Roman Empire. Like, we have electors and we have these like states, and like if the big thing doesn't work, it falls back into the little states. So this is a weird thing that I'm presenting to you. I'm suggesting we get out of the Confederacy by seceding. There's a guy on Substack doing a great job called Christopher Armitage. Feel free to be like, hey, Bruno mentioned you today, because I mention people that are good all the time. I try to send people their way. I've said to him, just DM, giving a guy a hand, that we need the RICO statutes to go after the Epstein, Wexner, Rothschild gangster system that has put this in place, that enforces it. It enforces it by conspiracy, by sexuality, by violence, by threats, by honeypots. See where I'm going with this? The guy who runs the FBI, who's fucking the Israeli girl, is never going to do anything. Right? We've all seen a lot of mob movies. We know how these things work. This is going to have to be on a state-by-state basis. We would need some sort of Alien and Sedition Act. Now, here's where you're going to go, oh my gosh, Bruno, like, you're interesting and you play cool music and stuff like that. And you referred to this light as like the thing in space or something, but you're losing us now. The Alien and Sedition Act would have to be passed state by state that would say that anybody who and this is a hard line of legalism to cross, anybody who votes to operate as an enemy of the Constitution, foreign and domestic. Remember, like, when you take an oath, you don't take it, we're different than France or Russia. We don't have like our system isn't based on the soil or the people on it or the religion. It's based on the Constitution. Paul Craig Roberts, that's some pretty heavy hitter. That's a big heavy hitter in the Republican Party back in the day. He's the architect of the Reagan Revolution. He wrote an essay recently and said, the President of the United States is in open rebellion against the Constitution by putting in these Noahide anti-Semitism laws. He is, go read the first sentence of the Bill of Rights, says Congress shall, how's it go? Congress shall pass no law establishing a religion. It's a little bit different. It's not about speech, people. It's about religion. They've used religion to create this. Jews should be just as terrified as anybody of what they've done. See, I didn't put the Israeli flag in there because this is, as frequently as the case in history, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. You know that whole thing, Mark Twain? That's where we are with this. Didn't work in 1860. The whole project of the fourth turning really implies that all the great, not tragedies, but all the great threats to the United States are all going to come all at once in 2026. And they wrote that book in 1991. And it has happened. And there is nobody on television you can vote for. I think what Tucker is going to do is create this American party that's going to like pull in like the Colonel McGregors of the world. It'd be like a fish trap for white men, just like the Democratic Party is a fish trap for brown girls, right? Some gay stuff, and the oceans are boiling, and everybody runs over there and votes for them. And it's a completely Zionist party. And then Tucker's going to like make a lot of noise about Israel and then pull everybody over there so that now that this thing has been established, we're all just going to be real concerned and have like a big furrow on our brow. Like, what the fuck happened here? There's not going to be any real attempt to recreate the American Republic, if you understand what I'm saying. Because what they have to do is arrest the congressman who voted for this. No, come on. You're out of your box. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. This isn't like we're just going to like Fox News our way through this. In order to have a republic, in order to have laws, you have to have laws that are executed. Anybody who violates their oath, and we're going to go a little bit deeper on this in a minute, and operates as an enemy, foreign and domestic, has to be arrested. It's a very high standard, but turning over all the entire intelligence world to a foreign power is clearly a violation of America's sovereignty. Then trying to, enforce that with these anti-Semitism laws is clearly connected. Not just on like an Epsteiner kind of way, but I'm talking like constitutional law. So the other idea you could throw in there, going back to this Alien and Sedition Act. In World War I, if you made any inference that you were siding with the Germans during World War I, you were put in jail. If you were against the war, you were put in jail, as was Eugene Debs, the head of the Socialist Party at the time. If you even seemed to be kind of lukewarm on the situation, they would put you in jail. Now, I'm not suggesting any of that. However, when anybody holds high office in the United States, let's take Tucker Carlson as citizen number one in this. Are you a CIA agent? Are you an agent of any other nation? Are you a member of a secret society? This is why you take an oath, right? Do you have any other connections that could, how do I want to say it? I'm sure people have thought this. It's much cleaner than I'm doing it off the cuff. Do you have any other connections, public or private, that would prevent you from executing your duties to the Constitution? This should apply to everybody in the press. This should apply to all high offices, lawyers, accountants, judges, of course, the U.S. military. Who runs the U.S. intelligence system? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. That's my point. There's no reason to believe that 42% of the U.S. Congress aren't CIA agents. I mean, I don't know that, but that's my point, that we don't know. How are we gonna vote for people if there is some sort of, like, Neo-Confederacy conspiracy thing, which is now on the books of the US Congress? How would we get rid of it if all the people that we're gonna vote for are part of it, right? That's the fear of democracy, is that there's nothing easier. There's more authoritarian systems of government, Putin, Z, monarchy, the so-called authoritarian, like we're taught that like absolute power corrupts and all that. Well, a system that just runs on public opinion is terribly vulnerable to the manipulation of conspiracy. And we're all on social media, right? We're all watching all this. We watched TikTok get taken over by the biggest contributor to the IDF, an app, a form. And there's guidelines. You're not allowed to get on there and say things that are illegal, just like I'm not allowed to run out on the street and scream fire or other things that incite people to do things. There's we've laws on the books so that we don't go insane. They just fucking stepped right up and bought that out. Total violation of the US Constitution. This is not going to be done. The revolution is not going to be televised from Washington, D.C. Washington has fallen. It's going to be on a state by state basis. It's really not based on blue and red. You're going to see people like Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna from California. You're going to see MTG take the side of this. I think people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Flannel Boy, what's his name, Nick Fuentes. I think there's a very good chance that they are limited hangout intelligence operatives. And this is why we have to have some sort of alien and sedition thing. Like, you can't be a dual citizen and be in the fucking US Congress. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, even if you're like a dual citizen with Canada. But as I've argued before, and I won't go into it again, but like many times on Sundays, I go on and on and on about this thing like, well, if you have a separation of church and state, really your vulnerability is someone who's not going to respect that. Not somebody, but a conspiracy that'll like work that seam. Like you can sit and listen to Ben Shapiro make this circular argument that Israel's the Jewish state, and without the Jewish state, the Jews can't exist. So we have to treat a state like a religion at the same time, therefore it doesn't have to register as a foreign entity. That's a perfect Ben Shapiro and Mark Levine, or whatever, however you pronounce it, are daily operating that seam. Feeling me? I mean, you could start a Catholic party, and this was the conspiracy that all Catholics were like, their voting would be controlled. I mean, they thought this when Kennedy was elected, that our voting would be controlled by the Pope. And he would like send out these things. Actually, they do send out things about voting. It's always about abortion. But other than that, there's not really a big like political movement in the Catholic Church. It's a very diverse place, as is Judaism. Okay, right? There's very leftist Jews. There's very right wing Jews. They don't agree with each other on. Jews and Catholics are very hard to pin down. I think I did a piece that said only Jews and Catholics can solve this problem, which is sort of funny. It's so ridiculous. But I'm not sure that I'm not wrong about that. It could be that the MTGs, Margaret Taylor Greens of the world, and Thomas Massey, who live in not the deep South, but sort of in the border areas, right? They're like I've spent a lot of time like in Nashville, and like you're sort of in the South, but you're sort of still in the Appalachian Mountains or something at the same time. And maybe they sort of inherently feel this. You know what I mean? They feel that there's something off, and they're right. An Alien and Sedition Act state by state by state, that would say, I'm sorry, but you can't go to the US Congress and vote to destroy the US Constitution. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Do we need a musical interlude? I don't think we're getting one today. This is pretty serious stuff. Alex Karp, as I've talked about many times, wrote a sort of a manifesto called The Technological Republic. As the title says, what they're trying to do, what they've done. It's done, people. It's done. The federal US government has been replaced by AI. The wars are being executed by AI. I don't know if you're keeping up on this, but we're clearly losing. We executed the Ayatollah of Iran, and he was buried yesterday, and the fucking Saudis were there. You know, the people with all the oil in the Middle East that export 10 million barrels a day. Alex Karp and his entourage of warlocks, as he calls themselves, thought that they were going to decapitate Iran, and they're going to throw in some Israeli instigators like we did in the Ukraine, and the country would be stood upside down. And the whole country came out. In fact, most of the Muslim world is openly supportive of Iran and the Ayatollah. Because the war on terror is a war, amongst other things, it's a war on Islam. There's 2 billion of those. It's a war on Islam. Remember the thing? There's a guy 6'5" with a beard, and he has a satellite phone, and he's on dialysis. He's taking all the blood out of him, running it through the system and running it back in because his kidneys are failing, and he's in a fucking cave. Remember that story? Now we're on to Iran, because that original story was bullshit. Libya was bullshit. Syria was bullshit. Iran's bullshit. Iraq's bullshit. Afghanistan's bullshit. Somalia land is bullshit. It's all bullshit, people. There is actually some religious extremists who have attacked us, but they're not Muslims, are they? This is an attempt to create a kind of caliphate, not a Muslim caliphate, a kind of a Jewish caliphate. That's what this is. Okay, so we failed in Iran. The US Navy's pushed out of the Persian Gulf, pretty much pushed out of the Red Sea. The Confederacy is losing. Loser Iran. No. Loser America. AI. Loser America against Chinese AI. 95% cheaper. Open source. Go watch. I've watched him 3 or 4 times, so I could really understand. Alex Karp is such a spaz. You can't understand what he's saying. But he's literally saying, we went directly back to NVIDIA because we don't even want to work with these LLMs that were made in America, OpenAI and Anthropic. We don't even want to use them. We have failed. The head of Microsoft, the CEO of Microsoft says, yeah, we're going to have to use Chinese AI. So we lost that war too. So the remaining war is Russia. So let's go back to the Civil War for a minute. No, you don't know this, but the Tsar of Russia wrote a letter to the imperial powers of Europe, namely France and Britain, and said any attack on the Union, on the American Republic, will be considered an attack on the Russian Empire. The Russian Navy occupied the San Francisco Bay and the Chesapeake Bay. We didn't have a very big navy at the time, and this is my point. This is why I keep showing you this. And the British Empire was ready to come in to our biggest ports at any minute. So the fucking Tsar sent the Navy in to prevent the British from reconquering the United States. And now who are we at war with? Russia. So let's just calm down for a minute and think this through. Now, again, you can go back to Alex Karp. Alex Karp is running this thing. Alex Karp is like the Judah Benjamin of the modern Neo-Confederacy. He does all the targeting. When I say he, it's his kill chain, right? Everything has to, you can't just get out of the situation by, well, that's just technology. The computer did that. We're not responsible for that. The computer did that. That's what the technological republic is, you understand? We're just going to foist this thing onto the computer and let it do what it wants to do. At war with Russia. So in order for the madness to be completely global, we, like the Civil War, the Confederacy has to go after Russia because their completely megalomania, warlock, freak show, antichrist thing has to take on all comers, right? They have to get America like bewildered into all these different wars from all these different angles, which is what the war on terror is. Just like Israel, right? The asshole from Texas gets on and goes, "You're either with us or you're with the terror." Remember that guy? Terror. Remember the terror guy from Texas? He's bisexual too, but let's all calm down. So, yeah, there was that boy that was picked up in Nebraska who was in the White House, and he's a prostitute, but we're all friends. So, if you've never heard that before, you probably were like, "Oh my God, would he please stop it with all these?" But if you know, you know. So, how does this play out? Now, so we got everybody in on this thing with Russia. We got Victoria Nuland, we got Richard Haas, we got Joe Scarborough, Rachel Maddow, Fox News, even though so many conservative Americans really like Putin because he purports to be a Christian and so forth. And, there was that woman, that Persian Jewish woman on TikTok who was just like, first we'll take out Iran, then we're going to take out Putin, and then we'll go to China. This is what Alex Karp's doing. You understand? He openly says we're at war with all three of these nations. And there's nobody to stop him. This is like a total Lex Luthor thing. There's nobody to stop him. Everybody in the Epstein system, in the AIPAC system, is on board with him. That's why I just named all the media people too. Now, of course, they send Tucker there and he does sort of a limited hangout. Look how nice the grocery stores are. I'm the conservative white guy that you should follow. And we'll go make some Mickey Mouse party and you'll vote for us and the whole MAGA thing will be solved and we'll get a big furrowed brow and stare at each other. So now here's the problem with brilliant woman on Substack, Lily 357, makes the argument that goes like this, very, very profound, that the West, I just like think about Hillary Clinton, like we came, we saw, he died. This is sort of the Rachel Maddow feminist view of Russia. Well, what's he going to do? Use a nuclear weapon? See how that's like, it's not really like a masculine view of the world. What are you going to do about it? It's like a Karen kind of a thing. So this woman, Lily 357, makes the point where she says, the way warfare works with the Russians is frequently they don't do very well at the beginning. And then there's sort of a stalemate, and then they kill everybody. Like Stalingrad, right? Alex Karp thinks he's at Stalingrad, and we're a couple months away from winning. Alex Karp is shooting drones and missiles deep into Russia. There's no one to stop him, right? We've turned over the Republic to the technology. That's why the book's called Technological Republic. That's what they've installed. It's not the Koch brothers and the Heritage Foundation and all that bullshit. Mm-mm. Why do you think J.D. Vance is next in line? J.D. Vance is Peter Thiel's boy, pun intended, and the founder of Palantir. The Oval Office is completely controlled by Netanyahu. That's sort of, everybody knows that, but lesser known. As soon as they want to get rid of Trump, they just get rid of Trump. And then we have Palantir's boy, J.D. Vance. You can put quotes around the boy part too, if you know. If you know, you know. So what they're probably missing on Russia goes something like this. I think I was listening to Alistair Cook, a former British ambassador. He made the comment that, like, are nuclear weapons really even the biggest threat anymore? No, it's missiles. It's missile hypersonics, missiles that can evade any sort of protection. And Russia has these in mass and has made these with Iran. And we saw how effective. So Iran is the new business model for warfare. You don't need, how many times have you heard Trump say, we've destroyed their navy. They have no navy. We destroyed their air force. They don't even know what weapons system they're fighting against. That's how fucking stupid these people are. They're nobody's getting like shot with a machine gun or like from a frigate or something. They're getting hit by missiles and we've destroyed the air force. Well, Russia is 10,000 times worse than Iran when it comes to the missile technology. The volume, the scale, and the fire. And if they want to put a small grade nuclear weapon into something. So I think it looks like this, people. It'll be primarily Europe, but not necessarily. Europe has raised publicly showing that they are completely controlled by this thing. What we did in the 20th century is we built this thing and it took over Europe, and that's called NATO. That's the real, that's why Patton and all the Marshall and all these people at the end of World War II went insane and said, we did what? We just beat back the Nazis so that the Soviets could take over half of Europe? What the fuck is that? Well, it's to establish NATO. And as the book says, 1994, Oceania, that's that, is forever at war with Eurasia, which is primarily Russia and Iran and China. But hold on. Putin's not going to use a nuclear weapon. He's not going to resort to these mass casualty events like Gaza. Iran did not resort to mass casualty events, although there's lots of death and destruction in places like Israel, sort of minimal in places like Dubai. Yeah, let's just throw a sort of a lawnmower kind of a thing at the Citigroup building, just to get their attention. Not to blow it up and kill everybody inside, just to take out the 18th floor. Let them think about it a little bit. It's a lawnmower. The thing sounds like a lawnmower. Flies about this fast. Right? They're made out of plywood, so the radars can't detect them. They just flew it into the side of the fucking Citigroup building in Dubai. I think what Russia would do if things escalate and we're getting close to that, it might be territorial, which would be like Finland and Poland, or they would just completely destroy all industrial capacity in Europe. That would take probably I could do that overnight. In other words, if you're going to openly talk about raising $800 billion to go to war with Russia, Putin said at the recent graduate of their officer school that NATO's getting ready to go to war with Russia. We have no control over this outcome, people. This is like you're living in Georgia and you don't really want to be part of the Confederacy. Too bad. You're in it. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter what cable TV bullshit you listen to. We have no control over this. This is AI run by a psychopath warlock named Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. The guy in the Oval Office on Adderall is just a crisis actor, sort of reality TV star named Donald Trump. And if he doesn't do what he's told, they'll just say like, "We'll just show everybody the video of you tying the 13-year-old to the bed." That's how that works. Happy 4th of July. This is real bad. We don't even have to get into the finances of all this. The $40 trillion phantasmagoria of the NASDAQ. And Alex Karps goes, we have to go right back to NVIDIA and start the whole thing over again. Now, let's do like some cultural stuff. The World Economic Forum and Harari and you'll own nothing and like it. Humans are just hackable animals. These are exactly the arguments that the South made to enslave Africans. They're just hackable animals. You just beat them. They don't know, they have no human consciousness. This is exactly how the people that built this thing, this is how they look at you. We're all Palestinians now. They're not, how many times have you heard this, like from Golda Meir? She said, well, they're not a real people. The Palestinians aren't real. There's no such thing as Palestine. The Romans named it Palestine, by the way. They're not really people there. They're Arabs that like pushed us out in like the year 600 or something, like the Muslim things. Like, no, that was 600 years after the diaspora, which was caused by the Jewish war, where they tore down the temple, right? But this is how they talk about us. This is how they talk about the Palestinians. This is why they're blowing up all the Christian churches. Nobody has any. What did what's his name just do? Huckabee. Huckabee just paid $1 for land, Palestinian land. So what do we do at the end of all this after millions of people have been killed and displaced for the last 25 years? It's probably as bad as uh, the genocide of the American Indians, the the Cherokee migration, all these things. We've been doing this for the last 25 years. It's just we have different people. We have Rachel Maddow and Richard Haas to explain it to us of why this is happening. I heard Joe Scarborough and his people talk about the Iran war and what went wrong, and then flip the conversation back to the Iraq war and say, "Well, look how good we did with the surge." Right? This is like the Democratic Party left wing thing that's skeptical of all this heavy handed Republican bullshit. But they go back and they refer to the surge as some sort of success. They're all in on the Neo-Confederacy. This is life or death of the Republic. Not trying to be grandiose with you just because it's July 4th. I'm going at this like legalistically, historically, strategically. We have a 37-year-old clown from Berkeley and the Frankfurt School shooting missiles at Moscow, and nobody does a fucking thing about it. Not even Bernie Sanders, does he? Nobody on the left, right? They captured all them. Putin doesn't like gay people. Rachel Maddow would just go on night after night after. She makes $100,000 a night, by the way. Night after night at Putin. Putin did this. Putin did that. Putin did this. Putin rescued his country from the Jewish oligarchy in 1999. Where I think we'll be in a couple years will be uh, the U.S. presence in the Middle East will effectively have been neutralized. Israel will have got what it wanted, which was Greater Israel, which is really just British Empire 2.0 with some fucking Star of David bullshit on it. And then, because of the war with Russia, the nation, very, very powerful, looked at it very strongly. The most powerful nation in the region is Turkey, which is part of NATO, which is adjacent to Russia, adjacent to Syria, adjacent to Iran, and adjacent to Europe. And it is going to look at all this and go, no, 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 we're not going to be proxied like Ukraine. In case you don't remember from sixth grade world cultures, Turkey ran the Middle East for about 1,000 years. The war on terror began on 9/11. They burnt down 2 steel buildings with 8,000 gallons of kerosene. And then Mr. Silverstein pulled the other one, like, like a tent. He pulled it. Like, how those tents that have like the center post in them? And if you just pull the bottom, like the tent falls down. Larry Silverstein pulled World Trade Center 7. He just pulled the center post out. Will be completely neutralized in the Middle East. Turkey will look around and trust nobody. Israel will be on the edge of being overrun. And by that time, Russia will probably have to do some massive preemptive strike against Europe, which will destroy the economy. Our ability to do nothing about any of this will finally be the end of what I've called the NASDAQ, and the war will show that the US empire can't hold anything together anymore. Not the bond market, not the Middle East, not the Persian Gulf, not the Straits of Hormuz, not AI, not the NASDAQ, not the $1.8 trillion in debt, not even equity, but debt created for this AI freak show that has now collapsed. Let me go out, because we all know that this thing is really like financial, right? Like, why did this one go down? Well, because of Grant and the armies and all that. But also, we all know from watching Gone with the Wind, when they pass the hat, everybody's putting their gold jewelry in it, is that the thing ran out of money, they ran out of food. The soldiers literally couldn't carry their weapons. Confederates couldn't carry their weapons. A musket weighs about 10 pounds. Imagine carrying that for 16 miles and then having to rapidly fire it over and over and over again while you're being shot at and you haven't had anything to eat for 3 days. So give me just a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm going to keep this to an hour of the big picture, because this is primarily like a financial thing. Through the war on terror, what we do is we escalate. The dollar goes up. even if the price of oil goes up, it doesn't really matter. And money flows into the treasury market. Now, how big was the treasury market when all this started? About $3 trillion, about this big. And it's now 40 trillion. Remember, the purpose of the antebellum South is slavery. Just like you'll own nothing and like it, just like you're just a hackable animal, just like if we put 40 or 50 trillion dollars on the American people, they'll never be able to get out from underneath it, and we will just suck all the blood out of the system until their children can't have children anymore. The wars, the 25 years of the war on terror is a perpetual reason to run a $1 trillion deficit. The money flows into the defense companies, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and so forth, flows into the tech companies. Most recently, we know the AI companies, which then creates market cap. Okay, they don't just print the market cap. There's another brilliant guy in here called Groundbreaker. Brilliant financial stuff. So the way you make market cap, it's really genius, the leverage. The government can run like a $700 or $800 billion deficit and create tens of trillions of dollars of market cap, just the movement of stock prices. Never forget, like Tesla's, I love to go on about Tesla's worth $1.5 trillion. There's no $1.5 trillion worth of anything anywhere. You understand that? There's not like $1.5 trillion worth of factories or something like that. That's called book value. Tesla's like 20 times above its book value, 20 or 25 times above its book value. Mercedes-Benz is like, and Toyota are like 0.25 above their book value. Okay. So what we've done through the war on terror is we've created this enormous amount of market cap, which you can see in the NASDAQ better than anywhere else, because it's ultimately flown into this thing called, remember Trump talking about Stargate and $22 trillion and all this? So what he was doing is like the largest pump and dumps. There's not really a dump scheme though. It's to pump the stock market to say, we went to the Middle East and we found $22 trillion somewhere. And we're going to bring this back in. We're going to build this massive infrastructure thing that's like insane, right? Like Sam Altman says, we're going to use like half of the world's energy for AI. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is crazy, right? Right. This is like how a nation that's 5 times smaller and doesn't have a cannon factory is going to go to war with the Union and lost. So they make this phantasmagoria of fake money, $22 trillion of money, to make a phantasmagoria of market cap. And what happens to the market cap whenever we shoot a missile at Iran? It goes into the bond market. It's so complicated, it's simple. It's so simple, it's complicated. This is how the US financial system funds itself, is through this debt and equity war-based imperial system. There's really nothing underneath it. Like you can say that like Walmart at 42 times earnings, a little rich and whatever, but like having the world's biggest or the country's biggest employer and retailer and so forth, that certainly is like a very important facet of the American economy. The NASDAQ has nothing. Well, come on now, Bruno. Okay. The head of Microsoft just said that every company is going to have its own AI, which means, do they even need Microsoft? In other words, if you have all these people operating on agents, by the way, I just got a text from the woman building ours. It's like our proprietary AI agent. Who needs Microsoft and Oracle? and the $40 trillion NASDAQ thing that runs the world. As the war on terror winds down, and I think it'll be with some sort of unexpected event from the Russians. The other thing they could do is just be like, okay, because this is how the Russians think. We don't really mean to kill a lot of people, but we're getting hit by these things, and they're coming primarily from like the Baltic region. So we'd ask that you evacuate all your ports in the Baltic Sea because we're going to detonate low yield nuclear devices in the ocean and launch a 100-foot tidal wave at all the ports in the Baltic Sea. Sorry about that, but that thing about those missiles coming into Moscow, we just couldn't take any more of that. So we're not going to kill everybody, but we're just going to completely deindustrialize the North Sea. That's what you're looking at, folks. Very similar to what Iran did to the Persian Gulf. They didn't just murder everybody or blow up all the salinization plants. And that's why the king of Saudi Arabia and they hate each other, by the way. The Shia and Sunnis despise each other. Like think of like Protestants and Catholics in Ireland and multiply it times 100. And the royal family of Saudi Arabia is standing over the coffin of the Ayatollah. That's how well executed the Iranians did. We're not going to kill everybody. We're not going to blow up your mosques and exterminate everybody like the Americans and the Israelis do. But we are going to take out your radar, and we're going to just do some target practice on the Citigroup building, and maybe have to blow up a couple tanks of oil just to make a big noise. But we're all friends. We're reasonable people. We're Muslims. We're the Islamic Republic. Aren't you guys Muslims too? This is what Putin's going to do to Europe. This is what Alexander Dugin has argued for ever since I've discovered Alexander Dugin. He said it's going to be turned into a massive crisis, and the people of Europe are either going to be exterminated or absorbed into the Russian system, because this thing is going to kill them all. This thing just told all the puppet, fake, plastic, cardboard dickwads of Europe, the Starmers and all these people who are all fake. They're all Obamas. They're probably all some sort of intelligence agent thing to raise almost $1 trillion to go directly to war with Russia. We're going to lose the whole thing. Now, while you're rolling the sausage around on the grill, you might want to put some headphones in. I'm going to post Solzhenitsyn's address to Harvard, 1978. You're not going to like it. Meaning, it's not that you're not going to like it because of what he said. He's just so different from us. He's so Russian and so weird and everything. But almost like listening to jazz or something, it's going to seep into your brain and it's not going to go away. And in 6 months, you're going to go back and be like, what did he say about that thing and the thing? And you're going to want to go back and watch parts of it. 1978, address to the Harvard graduation. He predicts nearly everything that I just mentioned. The pure cultural nihilism of like the Lady Gaga, Puff Daddy world, P. Diddy world. He says something that I think you should be very, very afraid of. He's an ardent anti-communist, right? He argues that we should have stayed and fought harder, longer in the Vietnam War. This is a guy that lived in a gulag for 3 or 4 years. That what communism has done to the people of, let's say, Eurasia, like China, Russia, and related in Eastern Europe combined, is develop them spiritually. This is the word he uses. While the West is degenerating spiritually into a kind of like Erica Kirk kind of a thing, sort of like a Kid Rock does, what's the guy's name? Joel Osteen. It's like a Kid Rock, Joel Osteen kind of a spirituality, which is not spirituality at all. It's more like a Walmart advertisement. And the West will be. Oh, the other thing that I'm going to leave you with this, because this is what I want to do to bring this all together. He anticipates some sort of third world war. He doesn't really go into it. He says, I think there'll be, as the West sort of becomes more decadent and the communist systems break down at the same time, there'll be some third world war. That's clearly the war on terror. And he says, I doubt that it'll be nuclear, which is also a very unusual thing to say in 1978. He actually anticipates sort of intuitively that there could be something that's sort of worse than like a big nuclear exchange in the plains of northern Germany, right? And at the end of it, I watched it again yesterday. I hadn't seen it in a long time, probably 5 or 10 years. It'll be one of those things that you don't really enjoy listening to it. You don't really get a lot out of it. And yet somehow it sort of gets under your skin. So I'll post that here for free for everybody. This will go up for free as well. I think it would make a lot of sense for me to do sort of a Rumble kind of thing and just annihilate the Tucker Carlson kind of white people fake opposition, because the white people have recreated this. The conservatives are the ones that sold their country out, not the blue-haired lesbians. This is not a blue-haired lesbian thing. Mm-mm. It's the Ayn Rand, it's the Milton Friedman. And this is this weird thing you're going to get if you listen to Solzhenitsyn. He anticipates that America will sort of fall apart from both sides. See where I'm going with this? And lastly, he anticipates that capitalism will sort of be triumphant in the end. And at the time he's speaking, China was merging into this like ridiculous Marxist thing to this like hybrid system, which they have now. And anybody who thinks the United States has a bigger economy than China is just a silly person. They're not to be taken seriously. I mean, take a minute, just take 30 seconds and look up the bridge to nowhere in California. That's the attempt at a rail system in California. It's a piece of concrete about 1,400 meters long. That's all California has to show, which it's a reduction in energy from driving an SUV, I think about 98% to go to San Francisco from San Diego on a train instead of a fucking Chevy Tahoe. Yeah, we have 1,400 yards of concrete poured. China has 35,000 miles of trains that go over 150 miles an hour. He anticipates all this. He anticipates that the sort of spiritual degeneracy of the West will become their what hollows them out from the inside. Not so much like a pure economic thing, not even like a massive nuclear exchange or something like that, but just a in literary terms, just a raw nihilism, which will not be the case in the formerly communist countries, primarily Russia and China. In the recent anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, the American wasn't even an American contingent at the parade in Moscow. We didn't even like celebrate the end of fascism. It's because we've decided to go that way. So, rescuing the Republic and what's left of it from our enemies, foreign and domestic, that would be sort of like a Rush Limbaugh, like an inside out Rush Limbaugh. I started doing that a little bit, and I played the Pretenders song, and I refer to Mr. Snerdley once in a while. People get a kick out of that. But tomorrow we're going to talk about something other than politics. Kind of a third way thing that embraces the economy, technology, social media. So I'm doing this thing this weekend, and I know that this isn't like the sexiest stuff for me to do. Like, nobody really wants to sit here and hear me right now on the 4th of July, but I got to get it out there. But the carp thing from Friday and this thing today and what I'm going to do tomorrow is all one big package. And if you understand the failure of American AI, if you understand the failure of the war on terror, and what the war on terror really is, has been the end of American sovereignty. We lost sort of to ourselves, if you get the joke. We lost to some sort of conspiracy that's like here, there, and nowhere and everywhere all at the same time. We lost. And then you'll see tomorrow that there's only one thing to do. I mean, you can vote for whoever you want to. I don't care who you vote for. I don't really think that that's where the action is. I think if you really wanted to do that the right way, you'd have to do it on a state by state basis. I think we'll eventually get there whether we want it or not, that the whole system will fall apart, sort of like the end of the Soviet Union. And we'll just be picking up the pieces politically just to reestablish, some sort of law and order. We've replaced the US Constitution with Epstein gangsters running massive AI systems and throwing missiles randomly around the world, primarily at Russia. Happy 4th of July.